goal, Quishbilly Huddersfield Town! The most famous goal of Quishbilly's life.
Is this the moment for Lee Fowler? It is. Take your place in Division 2, Huddersfield Town.
Thank you.
And Steve Simonson's boots now. He's missed. Steve Simonson clears the frame of the goal and collapses in a heap of tears. Huddersfield Town are promoted.
Mustafa Schindler has a chance to write his name in Huddersfield Town legend. And he takes that chance!
Welcome to episode 175 of the Andy Takes That Chance podcast. On Saturday, it was the coronation of King Charles III, and today, within the Commonwealth of Kirklees, it was the coronation of two kings, Warnock and Jepson, who rode into Huddersfield just before Valentine's Day. And whilst it took a month to get going, there was no stopping Neil the Warrior once he's rounded his troops and attacked the bottom end of the championship. Since the return of a previous monarch, David Wagner, Huddersfield Town have amassed 21 points in their last 10 games to leave us in 18th in the table, 9 points above the relegation zone. At one point at halftime against Norwich, we were 8 points adrift, bottom of the league. All hail the Kings. And here to extol the qualities of the 74-year-old puppet master, we have the Duke of Hazard, Mr. Richard Kosmarler. The man who puts a sparkle in Meghan Markle, it's our own Prince Harry, Dan Pozza. And when you need a guard, you look towards the goalkeepers, and we've plucked out one of the best. It's Phil Senior. Are we okay, guys?
Evening.
Evening, Matthew.
Right, fantastic. So this episode, as always, is sponsored by Magic Rock Brewing. Use our code of AHTTC10 for 10% off all your online orders at www.magicrock.com. And also, at Magic Rock, we might do a live show at the end of this month, maybe a season-ending party if there is any demand. So if you fancy that, let us know. Otherwise, probably won't bother. But yeah, so if you guys fancy a bit of a knees up, a staying up party, then I'm sure we can accommodate that with Mr. Chicken and Mr. Trickin. So guys, Huddersfield Town 2, Reading 0. So how nice was it just to put your feet up, have the old Kevin Nagel glass of wine, just toast the atmosphere as it's going on, and actually not be terrified of what's going on the pitch. For me, it was quite nice. It was like a bit like almost like a pre-season friendly in some respects at some points, wasn't it? But it was just nice just not to be shitting yourself, wasn't it, for 90 minutes for once?
Yeah, we're a little bit strange. We're not really accustomed to that town, are we? I think I saw an article last week that said out of the last 14 seasons, I think we've either been involved in promotion or relegation, fight going into last 5 games or so of a season. So we're not, we're no stranger to a tense match. So yeah, we're quite nice to just be able to go and kind of just watch and show that appreciation to Warnock, Jepson and the players. I must admit, I like something to be in a game. I like a little bit of niggle somewhere along the line, but given the season that we've had, I'd take with a bit in your hand off to be able to go into a Reading game. We know on it, and just to be able to go down and just watch without any kind of trepidation or fear, really. I thought first half were a bit of a non-event, really. Not really happened either way, did it? Second half, obviously, we kind of raised it a little bit, and once we got the it was game over, really, wasn't it? And you could tell that even after that goal, the atmosphere picked up, and it just kind of turned into a bit of a celebration, really, which were really nice.
Lovely goal as well, wasn't it, Phil? Josh Karoma, he's been an absolute fire, hasn't he, in the last month or two? It was the closing down on the goalkeeper, wasn't it, that really caused the error within Reading's back line, and then it's worked its way to Josh Karoma. And as soon as he opens his body and his foot opens up from that position, you know where it's heading. It's bottom corner every time. I don't think I've seen. I suppose there's shades of Carl and Grant when Carl and Grant used to do that all the time. But it's just nice, isn't it, to after a season of watching us toil up front and look like never scoring in a month of Sundays, for someone to just look like they're going to smack the ball in the bottom corner when it comes to them like that.
It's funny because at the start of the season, when he made a few appearances, etc., and last year, it was kind of signposts that it was doing that, and it would almost like he was trying to force it too much, and trying too hard. It didn't really come off for him. And since Warnock's come in and he's been a little bit of a different player, and that's his trademark. That's how he likes to finish. He likes to open his body up. He likes to whip the ball in fast stick, and it's really funny you should say that, because I turned out to my little lad and I said, like, that is his trademark. And as a keeper, if you do your research, you know he's going to do it. But if you execute it well and you do it quickly, it's really hard to stop. And he's full of confidence, isn't he? And it's, like I say, it's a great finish, and 2 great finishes, really, to be fair, and a nice way to finish the season.
Kosi, there were quite a few young lads have had time on the pitch this year, haven't they? Diarra started again today, and he's starting to look quite strong, isn't he, on the ball? There's a couple of nice little flashes from him. The young lads have, had a lot of minutes. Redoni, Headley, etc. They're all going to be much better for this next season, aren't they?
Oh, definitely under working under Neil Warnock. I think it's a bit of a misconception that obviously these old videos from back in the day, the 90s and stuff, it's like, we were discussing it in the pub after, it's like as well, I think the trouble is the national media loves to play on these old videos, but you can't do that in 2023, kind of go in there, this is a squad who've been wounded, 2 managers before Warnock, so you ain't going to come in there and just like lambast people and stuff, and the media are obsessed out there, like we're kind of going on about those old videos, so I think he deserves so much more credit than he's kind of been given, really, and that as well. And yeah, it's not exactly free-flowing football, but he's improved players as well. And the real interesting thing with the young players, Matt, is take for example Joseph Ungbo. Nick, you're running order here, but he came in that Birmingham game and scored, and I thought, here we go. This is a guy who is going to play a lot, and he never did. He's used the young ones. He's just been perfect how he's used them, Matt. He's brought Ungbo back in later on, made a massive difference in the last month as well. You've got a lot of players who he's kind of, obviously Headley got injured and then he's brought him back. I thought at first he'd be going with experience, and they tried and tested. I think we did see that, Matt, early on, maybe in the Burnley and the Coventry games. Obviously, like someone like Matt Lowton, played quite a few minutes earlier doors. But it's been fascinating to watch how he's kind of managed these young players. And again, it's not just him. I think Ronnie Jepson just needs immense credit, but he's brought players out of nowhere and as well. And he's just kind of the way he is. Honestly, some of his interviews, you kind of look there with open mouths. He's like, Karoma's music and it's this, that, and the other. It's just, honestly, it's just incredible what he's done.
Happy camp, isn't it? It just sounds like a really happy camp.
Yeah, and it's just, I just refuse to believe that, he makes players feel good so they play well. That's bollocks, man. He must have had an impact. I found it fascinating yesterday, Matt, that he said that, in the press conference on Saturday, he said he had an hour with Ian Kamara. And this is a guy who's never seen I don't think he's played a minute for Warnock, but the fact that he's still trying to influence players, and he said, I'm sure it would Kamara, I could be totally wrong here. I think it would Kamara.
No, it was, yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like, I just sat there and thought, this is incredible, because this is a guy, because Kamara must be thinking, frustrated that he's never played any minutes, but he's got to respect what Warnock's done, so he's kind of been justified in how who he's picked and who's not picked. But if you're listening to that, and yet part of you think, well, hang on a minute, mate, you've never played, mate. And the fact that he's got that respect like that, I just find it fascinating how he's dealt with all the young players, because I really thought we'd be getting Wagon playing every week and Lola playing every week and stuff, and it's been far from it. So it's been fascinating and just a total thrill, really, mate.
Yeah, Roman Edmonds-Green in midfield earlier on as well at one point. There's some really very different things he's done, which you probably wouldn't, like Hungbo up front and things you probably wouldn't have naturally been inclined to think about. Yeah, I think Neil Warnock is far more than just a motivator, isn't he? I think he understands players, and he understands how players fit together as well around each other, doesn't he?
He's just the Midas touch. Ben Jackson comes on, all of a sudden we're playing better and we score. I mean, it's incredible, mate. Whatever he seems to do, he just turns to gold. But it's more than just luck, mate. He's just brilliant,
turns to old. There you go. Neil Warnock, an absolute genius, isn't he? Hungbo is reinventing the Thunder Bastard, isn't he? I don't know if we're going to call it the Hungbo Bastard at the minute, because he's scored. I'd sat there at the weekend and I was sketching out videos that we need to do. Not you shithouses, but me and Brady need to do for the end of the season. The goal of the season video, the player of the season, blah 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 blah. And I wrote down the sort of 12 goals. I thought, goal of the season. Here we go, got 12. And I'm like, I need to remove 2 really, just so we can have 10. And we're struggling. And then he's gone and done another one today, and I've now got to get 3 because that's an absolute start. And Hungbo's got, I think, 3 on the shot, 3 on the short list. The one against Birmingham was outstanding, wasn't it? The Cardiff one, maybe that probably gets dropped, but it's sentimentally how big the goal was. And then today, he's come in, hasn't he, from Watford? And I spoke to Mike from the Rookery and a Watford podcast, and he was like, whenever he gets a chance, he never really takes it. He doesn't really do an awful lot. when he gets a chance for us, he takes it, doesn't he? He's, he might not, like Kosi says, he's not playing every game, but when he does play, he's on it, he's at it, and he's producing. And for me, if the opportunity comes to make that permanent, I'd do it. Me, I think he's got a lot of growth potential as well. I like the guy.
I think it comes down to players being happy, Matt, and playing with confidence. You mentioned there that Watford fella. When he comes in, he didn't really take a chance. And Phil being in a dressing room as a player around footballers that are a little bit like the ones that are more sort of skillful and flair sort of players. Going forward, if those players are happy and them players are confident, that they don't play within themselves, and that's when they can produce goals like today. Because if he's not confident cutting in like that and shooting, he cuts inside and squares one maybe across field or whatever. But he's in a good place, in a good frame of mind, and you've got to put that down to Warnock's man management skills. I know obviously we've just said there he's more than just a motivator, but for me that is his biggest skill, is a motivator of people, and he knows what to say to people to get the best out of them. And he's obviously got that quality there, and he Hungbo, and it's just now whether or not we can bring someone in to do the same job as Warnock in regards to getting the best out of players such as him. Obviously he'll go back now, his loan spell's finished, and I'm sure there'll be a pre-season pod where we decide on who we might want to buy and all that sort of business. And for me, I agree with you, it would be right up there if you can get that sort of performance out of him for a full season. You've got a really good championship player there for me.
It's not
gets better as well.
It's not often I get stuff like, it's not as with rocket science, but I always think, who are your weapons? Who are your guys that are going to win games?
A couple of weapons on this podcast.
Yeah. Because it's Matt, and that was the worry thing, and it's incredible what's happened. But I remember, like in podcasting match, I was saying we're relying on a guy who's hardly played any first team football, Joseph Hungbo and Josh Karam. I just thought these are the only two players, and I mentioned obviously knockout, but that's never transpired. But Hungbo and Karoma, they're guys that can win games, and that's exactly what's happened. They've won us games, and I think he obviously made us solid. I think we were. I'm going to get slaughtered here, but I think on the following, we were to a certain extent we were pretty solid, but we just didn't have any threat. We didn't have any threat at the other end. But these guys, honestly, Hungbo, fantastic. Remember when that interview? It was quite a bit cheeky, really. That first interview we did. One, he said, "What can we expect from you?" When Raj Baines threw in the comment, he said,
"Oh yeah, full of himself, wasn't he?"
Yeah, what did he say? I'm going to excite you. I'm a guy who can get you off your seat. And I thought, bloody hang on a minute, mate. This is a guy who like at Ross County last year, and it's just. But he has, and he's so big and strong. I'd hate to mark him. I don't know if there's no, I don't think there's any defenders in this podcast, but he's big, he's strong, he's direct, and I just think Warnock's created that culture. It's took me a while for people to say, what has Warnock done different? Why are we doing what we're doing? And he just created that culture where people just have a go, and he won't. We got the Sunderland game, was a great example where we were positive, but we got picked off on the break, and it was a brilliant goal what they scored. But Warnock were like, fair play. That's what can happen. But we have a go. He's just created that culture where maybe, and again, Fotheringham, if you're watching this, he might be like, you're talking bollocks, mate. But he just got the culture there that don't get too far. Radoni, don't go too far up. Make sure you track. It's like, so if I'm a player, I'm thinking, I'm not gambling here. I'm not going to try and win the games where Warnock's like, I'll back anyone who has a go, as long as someone's kind of covering. And that, honestly, it's just been beautiful to see it all unfold where people, that Hungbo, when he came up to Cardiff, an incredible man. I know it was a bit of a gift of a goal, but still a bit to do. But the guy, you could see it.
But he wouldn't have been there under Fotheringham. That's the thing, isn't it? He wouldn't have been that high up the pitch, and that's probably the difference. Is we were so conservative under Mark Fotheringham. Yeah. We had never ever any intention of getting out and getting at people. It was just all about stay in the game until 10 minutes before the end, then try and nick something. And it was shit. It was absolutely shit. Some of the worst football I've seen for a long time. So. Are we sad Fotheringham's gone? Absolutely not. Are we happy Neil Warnock's come and saved us? Absolutely. Dean's taken a lot of stick, hasn't he, for the summer? He's, a lot of people will say, and I wouldn't disagree that, the summer transfer window and how we ended up was maybe a problem of his own making. But, he's put his money where his mouth is and he's rectified it by, stumping up for Neil Warnock and it's worked.
What about the January window, Matt? The January window.
Let's not talk about that. I absolutely pulled to bits our January window.
Yeah, maybe.
I pulled that. I pulled our January window to bits on Brady's preview pod, and I stand by every word. It was absolutely crap. Hungbo was decent. Vasilik's ended up decent, but some of the other signings were just absolute garbage, and it was desperate. And we were lucky that Neil Warnock's come in and saved us. Really.
Oh, Phil, can I ask you something, mate? It's like I know you've obviously played and been in dressing rooms when obviously Jacko when we were winning, but confident. I know it's said time and again, but he never ceases to amaze me how confidence just keeps. Honestly, it looks. You're part of it wonders now. Another couple of months where we could have ended up, but once we get in a roll, it's honestly 1 defeat in 10. It's incredible. The guys just look like they could. It's like today. I knew we'd win. You know, in second half, I knew we'd find a way to get a goal, and I just thought against Sheffield United, I thought we'd get one, and it's just that belief. It's almost like players and fans, everyone. Is it just you have to kind of grind out a couple of results early on like we did against Millwall, and then Watford? How does it come this confidence there? I know don't say winning games and then move on because you just how does it happen? How can this team look like this now?
Well, the thing is, you've talked to Ed about like Warnock in terms of like people always say he's a good manager. I've like spent a bit of time watching the players like then interactions with him, and tactically, I don't think he's done anything amazing tactically when you watch the games. But the you can see in the players, you can see in the reaction to him, the response that he's getting from players that no one else has been getting. It's massive. It's absolutely huge. If you know someone believes in you and they give you that full confidence in your ability for what you can do, and we talked about obviously getting a few more players forward. Yeah, we are doing. I get that. First half today were horrendous. Second half, I don't think it was Ben Jackson that made the difference. It was the fact that we pushed 2 players out wide and we could switch play a little bit more and had more options. And obviously he could see that. But I think the confidence that he will give those players in a position where it is horrendous when you are struggling at the bottom of the league and your confidence is rock bottom. I cannot understand how he's turned those players around into people who 100% believe in themselves. The teams that they've played at the end of the season that we pick points up against, which we shouldn't be picking points up against. It's astounding what he's done. I can't, I was, one of those things when we talked about bringing Warnock in and I was like, right, okay, it didn't start great. And I was one of those who were like, well, to be fair, I'd probably stuck with following them because we're not really getting much out of this. And all of a sudden, something's just changed. Whether it's the leaders have kind of brought themselves up, like your Matty P's and Lee's, and then we've just kind of gone, here we go again. And Hoggy's obviously performed a little bit better. I don't know. You hit the nail on the head. It's you cannot understand what he's done. And I suppose unless you're in that changing room, you'll have no idea because Jacko were exactly the same. You lot can see Jacko outside and you'll see him for what he's like. Jacko was unbelievable. Jacko would have his arm around people. Someone like John McAllister. Like was the ultimate, John was a young kid. He made him feel, he was bloody hell, he was 8 foot tall. He made him feel 10 foot tall, do you know what I mean? And that's the kind of quality sometimes that you need in a manager. And not
do you remember that Birmingham game? Who did interviews? They were definitely Umbo. And it might have been Diarra, Kamala. And they were like, it's Neil Warnock, man. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute, guy.
That was Umbo, that.
Even Umbo and someone else. I can't remember what, but they were like, I was stunned because I'm thinking, hang on a minute, you're young guys, you what?
Redoni, wasn't it?
Yeah, half of these young supporters today are singing Neil Warnock's name. They weren't even born in 1994, like when we were there. So it's like, but the aura, the guy, it's almost like a cult. The guy was people, Matt, Leeds and Pierce are going to know it because they're a bit older. But these young guys from that first game, it's like it's almost like you can imagine him slapping down Canal Side, and he said on every single interview I've seen with Warnock, the players have looked in the eyes, they've looked and listened to every word, and that's a rare in the dressing room now where you get people just plenty to say. It's incredible, mate.
What was brilliant though?
We were talking under the stands about this, exactly the same thing, and we were saying about like the next manager, and we've tried your Danny Schofields, etc., and Sieverts or whatever, following them as new starters. But is it just the fact that someone really experienced, knows the stuff, brings that respect, and the players have obviously, gone along with it. They, like you've just said there, whatever he says is right, and they're going to follow it. And is that something we need to look for our next appointment? And
that's a question for you. I want to ask because I keep hearing people, it's just because the manager knows what he's doing, and that's all. But I digress. I don't think anyone else but Neil Warnock could have done this. But a lot of people saying an experienced manager could have done the same. But I didn't really think the squad were there where, to be fair, most people else said, it is. It just needs
Told you, buddy, they were there. Told you.
Yeah. So I suppose my
No one
question
likes I told you so, though, do they?
Could another experienced manager done the same? For me, it's just only Neil Warnock could have done that. Or am I a bit too...
You know
No,
what?
I think you're right. I think when it came to appointing Fotheringham, I think if you'd have got that appointment right, would have been fine. But at the point Warnock came in, we looked dead, didn't we? I think Mark Fotheringham did almost irreparable damage to the confidence of that squad, and the way he handled himself, he was such a bad appointment, really bad appointment. To be honest, probably no worse than Schofield, in all honesty. But we made two poor appointments for different reasons. But the way the squad was, the Wigan game, Narcis Pelak, he's a really nice bloke, isn't he? A lovely bloke, Chicho, or Chico as Kosi calls him. But he couldn't get anything from them, could he? Him and Clem couldn't get anything from them against Wigan or against Stoke. And I love the story where Ronnie Jepson rang Neil Warnock up in, when he was in New York, and he's like, "Are you sure these lot are shite?" Didn't he? Pretty much. And what I loved, Kosi, what I was going to say is what I loved going back to when he first came. The very first, they all had the cameras on him when he pulled up for the very first time. He pulled up in the car park at Canalside. The first thing he did was get out of the car and he walked over to Brahima Diarra, didn't he? And he gave Brahima Diarra a pep talk within 10 seconds of it. And Brahima Diarra, like I say, 18, 19-year-old French kid, he's probably no idea who Neil Warnock is. And he's absolutely in awe of him. And, the clever little stuff like that. I think of him as a puppet master to me, just pulling the right strings at the right time. So clever, even in his interviews. And what he was saying prior to Sheffield United about Paul Heckingbottom, just sort of almost lulling them into a false sense of security, or just kind of the certain things he was saying, these lot don't need to beat us, etc. They've done really well this year. It's just almost like he's just that psychological little thing, the string he's pulling just to try and get them to notch it down a level. He's so clever. Honestly, I've been watching all the interviews, and every time I just think this guy is so clever. And all the things he does.
It reminds me of them. Like, you talk about younger players maybe not knowing he is, or, older players, Phil saying, obviously they know Warnock and these younger players might not, know him as such. But he comes across as one of those, like, really interesting old blokes who sit in a pub who can just regale stories, and, like, younger lads will just listen to it and buy in because it'll just be, like, believable in it, and he'll just tell a story, and you know what, you'll come away thinking, bloody hell, he knows what he's on about, this guy. So it's not even a case of someone has to go and just go like, do you know what, you need to listen to this guy because he knows what he's on about. Young lads, whatever, look at him, 74-year-old, what can he teach me? You won't have any of that. You just have a wise old man telling general stories, probably not even meaning. Someone can tell a story with a meaning behind it without even knowing that they're telling you a story with a meaning behind it. And I can imagine that he's done that one-on-one with a lot of players. And I think as well, you mentioned there, because you don't think anyone else could have done it. I agree with you there. But I think the main thing that's helped with that is the fact that Neil Warnock we're already a town legend. So even if he'd have come in and not really done it, the crowd wouldn't have got at him. Whereas anybody else coming in, if we hadn't have picked up, it could have still been a bit of a toxic atmosphere, people, against the club. And I think Warnock had that in his locker, that the fact that you were never really going to go down and really get at Warnock. You might, have a bit of a grumble on here or on social media, as some people did, and found out to their cost that, he actually reads it and stuff, which were quite funny. But he always had that kind of in his background that you were never going to really get at him. You might be a little bit disappointed. Whereas if someone else came in, you could have had a pop at them quite easily because it got no better. And obviously, thankfully for Warnock, it did get better. And you could see today that almost pretty much a sellout, for a game where there were absolutely nothing on it. And it just shows that, people wanted to come down and show that love and show that respect to him, which is the right deserve.
You want cheap admission pods and all, before when we've done it at tenner ring.
It was full price, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. There was such a buzz around the place. Like you say, it's just the aura of Neil Warnock. But I mean, he'll obviously say, I always thought, but I remember that interview after Coventry, and I think if you'd have got him on the pod, he would have told you, I think we're done. I mean, I think he's as much said it in a couple of interviews I did, but that Coventry game, I remember he looked haunted because of Ellick with a back pass, and but he says now, like, I thought we should have won that. But at the time, I remember that interview. But I watched the old Fotheringham interview back. I know I like Payne and stuff, but it's got to be just more than this. But when you listen to Fotheringham, everything seems complicated and complex, and it's like you just listen to it and you just feel stressed out as a fan. Where Warnock, even after the defeat, he just keeps everything really simple and stuff. And it's like what you said, Phil, about no tactical massively switch and stuff that you can see. But football seems a simple game with Neil Warnock. But obviously we hate promotions and keep Rotherham up and us up. He's got to be more than that. But for him, everything seemed confusing. And I liked for the early doors, and I was backing him on the air with some of his interviews. But the last few ones, when you listen to a man, you're thinking, I just don't agree with you. I don't get that. Coventry went away when he said we played really well and, blah. And I'm just thinking, that's bollocks, mate. We were just, in fact, I might have slagged them off there. But it's just, when you've lost a manager as a fan and you're thinking, but Warnock, even when defeat, I kind of, I agree with you, mate. I totally get that. And he's just brilliant with the media. And the one thing as well that I don't know if you've noticed, he's improved our profile. Unbelievable. He's such a national darling, and it's been fascinating to see. Even Leeds fans I know, they really like him. And even though he didn't do a good job there, because I think there's a place, people are fed up with these kind of people who buzzwords and just
laptop managers,
Yeah, people are like him. I mean, let's just note Big Sam doesn't keep him up, but you know what I mean? People are warm to him. And honestly, the number of likes I've had today when I put that video on from Leeds fans, and I think it's almost as if saying, look, this is a man of the people. This is a guy who speaks our language. And the fact Sky Sports News put that, you mentioned, Poz, about that, you might just mention there about Ronnie mentioning Stoke, the disgrace. Sky Sports News showed HTTV video. And it was almost as like, and they give us a big 5 or 6 minutes on there. And just the profile of Neil Warnock and Huddersfield Town were like, has been for the last 2 weeks since that Cardiff game, we've been real big business. And it's made me think how, I know you would say it, Matt, but like, I don't say we're massive and that stuff sound like a Sheffield Wednesday fan, but
stick your chest out, Kosi. Stick that chest out.
It makes me realise that, I mean, again, today with the big crowds, Thursday night, big crowds, 2,000 at Cardiff, Huddersfield Town, not say sleeping giant, but maybe they're, they're a bit bigger than I think.
It's better than it gets given credit for, is Huddersfield Town.
Yeah. Definitely.
It's because it's a northern town. It gets looked down on a lot, and it's better than what it's given credit. It's better than its media profile is. I'll say.
And I, mate, well, unbelievable people dancing in the street and and stuff. Those were the days came on, and everyone's going wild. It was brilliant, mate. It was just like, this is football. The town and the people. Warnock's united them again, and where it were broken, now it's back. But obviously, we'll talk about it later. But the massive. Honestly, the next appointment is just absolutely huge. But
let's move on. Let's move on from
everyone's back in love at the moment, so it's all good. And the season's cards are priced well, so it's good, man.
Right. So I think the next thing is it was good. We'll finish the Reading game. It was quite nice to see Naby Sarr, wasn't it? It was a typical Naby Sarr game. 2 really ropey back passes, helping to give a goal away, and then some unbelievable clearance off the line as well, wasn't it? Which was ridiculous, that clearance off the line from Radoni. Football, like you say, football's lacking characters and decent people, but Naby Sarr's certainly one of the best characters, a decent bloke, isn't he? So it was quite nice to see Naby get a
one thing that I like, Matt, as well, and I see you see this a lot in Germany, but not so much in England, but they've been relegated, and there's some of their fans, their team came up to their fans really close up, a couple of gave the shirts to it, and if I'm thinking I'd go down the tunnel, and they were getting some shit, and I just think if I'm a player, I'm thinking you're going to get that, because in effect we've been relegated, and a lot of them players I don't think they've been playing normally, but I just thought big risk, from a kind of outside looking, I thought just massive respect for those who travelled, them Reading fans, because I thought they were class, and B, almost the players that were like, I just thought it was kind of a nice moment in football where I just feel sometimes that maybe the top level players are a bit detached from their people. I just thought it would just, maybe I'm too much of a softie, but do you know what?
No, it's good. It felt like for Reading, it felt like there was maybe a connection there, and that helps, doesn't it, to bounce back? So maybe next year if they can maintain that, they've got a chance of bouncing back, but they need to sort the finances out, don't they, before we do that. Let's gloss over Huddersfield Town 1, Sheffield United 0 on Thursday, because we haven't really done much of a pod on this, but we did sort of a brief, momentarily drunken stupor in King's Head on Thursday night, but I've never been as nervous in my life. I actually said, I was sat next to a mate at the game, and I was like, I'm more nervous for this game than I was in the playoff final by a mile. For me, I want Huddersfield in the top 2 divisions. I hate League One. I hate League One, honestly. I don't want us there. So I was nervous, and there was nothing to be nervous about because Sheffield United were just knocking the ball between themselves.
I was nervous, Matt. I
was horrible. I was all over the place, stressed.
I don't know if it's just because I knew we had Reading match coming up where I thought we'd get a result. I wasn't too concerned.
Well, I thought Reading would beat us I thought Reading last game, if they need to win, they'll throw Zhao and Carroll up front and just bombard us. I just didn't really fancy that.
Well, strange night in the stadium though, Matt. I think like when it started, there was a bit of nervousness about, and the atmosphere it was just surreal. Wasn't it? It was almost like the game we played at Stanford. It was almost like reminded me of that game against Barnsley where people weren't like moving. It was like the game had stopped because there was a medical emergency in the.
Because he's gone on mute somehow.
Honestly, you watch that. You watch that access all areas, 17 minutes. It's quite incredible. If anyone hasn't watched that, watch it because it is the emotion on and off the pitch, the scenes in the goals, the scenes in the stands. The goal obviously was a sensational goal from Danny Ward. It was honestly, it just makes you tingle, man. It's incredible. Honestly, the second half onwards were just. You think I remember Paul Fletcher when he's saying back in the day when that stadium was built, it's got to find its own history. It's got like Leeds Road, it's got to build its own history. And honestly, you're thinking 30 years, it's next year, isn't it? That's up there with Lincoln and Link up there with, but obviously the Luton and that night on Thursday, that to me that is etched in our history. Just a famous night, man.
Hell of a strike as well from the king of Kirkburton. Is it Kirkburton where Danny Ward lives? It was superb, wasn't he? He was great, was Danny Ward. He's come back, and I think Warnock's picked him against the medical advice of the physios, hasn't he? And he's done well as Danny Ward. He's had people closer to him than what he did under Fothers, hasn't he? So he's obviously looked a little bit better. Karoma's got closer to him, and it's obviously helped. Hungbo's come on, and they've played 2 up at times. Others have come in and played their part. Simpson, Harrott have all come on and done little bits here and there, haven't they? It's because he's obsessed with the Forest score.
3-2 now. What a game! Yeah,
3-2. But absolutely brilliant game. Second half, we were decent, weren't we? We were really good. Once we scored as well, they were never scoring, and it felt to me like they were going to score at some point. But I had a mate next to me, and he was just sat next to me. He's a Town fan, and we're like, as soon as Ward scored, he was like, "Matt, calm down. There's no way these lot are getting 2. Don't worry about it. It's done." And then I was just like. 10 minutes later, he's like, "Are you still nervous? Don't worry about it. They're not getting 2. It's done." And then got to the 93rd minute, and I went, "Do you know what? I don't think they're going to get 2 now." It got to that stage where I was like quite happy to accept it. But such a relief, Kosi, at the end. And the scenes as well with Warnock and Jeppo. Jeppo's clapping. I've got a mate who finds Jeppo's clapping really funny because he has like open palms when he does. It
is, mate. I agree with him. It's funny you say that because where's Kosi?
Make some noise though. You can hear it. He opens his fingers, doesn't he? And he's
he's like every time he does a clap like that, he kind of just like bare and claps. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. But do you know what? Those 2 blokes though, it was so good, wasn't it? If this is Neil Warnock's last job, it just felt poignant because he had unfinished business with us, didn't he? After 94, 95, I was devastated when he left. It was a little bit mixed because we'd just been promoted, so you were very happy, but at the same time you'd lost, the best manager I'd seen at that. Obviously, I haven't been supporting Town that long, but we'd lost a great manager, and I've always wondered what we'd have done if Neil Warnock could have stayed, and I always think that Neil Warnock would have got us to the Premier League if we'd have stayed in the next couple of years, if he'd have been backed, obviously, and. It's just great that unfinished. It just feels like that unfinished business from 30 years ago has been finished now. He's come and he's managed Huddersfield in the Championship. He's saved the club, and he can just ride off into the sunset now, can't he? And just be the legend. And he's up there, isn't he? With Buxton, with Wagner, with probably not Herbert Chapman, but he's up there, isn't he? With the top managers that this club's ever had. And it was just nice to see him get that praise and the songs sung about him in the ground, and got no idea what Kosi's up to in the background.
Just wandering around his house, really.
Like Annika Rice just pissing about, isn't he? But it was just so nice, wasn't it? Just to see them get, yeah, Snacky Chan over there. But it was so nice, wasn't it? Just to see them get this round of applause and this ovation that their careers deserved, as well as the job they've done. And it was just nice, wasn't it? And Jeppo, always magnanimous, because I'm sure he's absolutely huge in everything that done, and he's always you first gaffer, and still calls him gaffer, and it's just really nice. And for me, Ronnie, Pozza, you've got just best ginger on the pod and your little strapline there, but I'm sorry, you're not the best ginger in Huddersfield at the minute. Ronnie's taking that crown.
I'll take a second to Big Ronnie. I'll take a second. He's a sound guy as well. I met him after bumped into him after the Watford match down at Vicarage Road, and we'd just been in Chippy, and Jack, my youngest, he spotted him and he was shouting, "Ronnie, can I have a phone?" And he's turned around, you can have a photo, but you got to give me some chips. So as he's lining up a photo, Ronnie Jepson just taking handfuls of chips off an 8-year-old and scoffing them into his face. And
with the big splayed fingers again.
Yeah, big massive fingers coming in. And must have eaten half of it. Our Jack afterwards, I've actually got any chips left, Dad. And I just think that'll be like one of them moments that he'll remember that for the ages. Because after the match, we were lucky enough to pop down where players, hang around and stuff like that. And Ronnie Jepson, he was eating his post-match pizza that they all get. And even our Jack, like, I'm going to ask him for a slice, Dad, because he nicked all my chips out of a week. And I just thought they're them moments that kids remember, aren't they? So, if they're like that with fans and stuff, you can only imagine what they're like with the players and stuff. So it's easy to see why they've been in such good spirits over the last few weeks.
Importantly, though, did he get a slice?
No, he didn't, because Ronnie Jepson, I'd never seen a man eat an 11-inch pizza as fast in my life. Honestly, he basically just folded it in half and ate it like a calzone.
Like a sandwich.
It was brilliant. He just went,
Go on, Phil. What were your thoughts on the aftermath of the Sheff United one?
53 points. I mean, obviously, after today, it's absolutely obscene. 9 points off safety. It makes you wonder what we're all worried about. It was just... I wasn't as nervous, Matt, and I just felt the Cardiff game had bought us that insurance, and I get what you say in the last game, and you didn't want it to happen. But I'd have still backed us today if it had been a winner takes all, and we'd had the draw kind of thing. But obviously, I didn't want it to go there. But the way the game was panning out, to be honest, I was kind of thinking, okay, obviously, a draw wouldn't have done us any good whatsoever. So I knew we'd kind of
would have been safe with the draw.
You what, sorry?
Would have been safe with the draw against Sheff United.
And Thursday?
Yeah, a draw would have been safe.
Yeah, we would, wouldn't we? Yeah, it's a good job. You haven't been drinking.
You're not on the AL, aren't you?
A few days on it, but no, I don't know. It's just that belief that that 1 win in 10 has kind of got me. I just kind of felt that we do it. Much for me, we're depending on their mentality, but obviously they kept the ball really well, but they didn't really hurt us. I mean, there was a tweet posted on our account saying, "Oh, Nichols kept us in it," but I never felt it like that. To be honest with you, and that as well, I just felt that have we got that moment of quality? And luckily we did. I mean, some of our goals in the last month or so, I mean, obviously we don't score many, but there's some incredible, absolute works of art as well. And it was just brilliant. And I just really enjoyed the last, I know some people might say not, but I was loving the last 10, 15 minutes. I was just drinking it all in. It reminded me some of them Premier League games when, I remember when we beat United and a few of us, I just sort of drink it in, just take it all in, because you go through so much pain as a Town fan and so many bad times. Christ, we've had so much, and I just thought enjoy it. And the moment where you thought, yeah, like you say, we needed that a point to do good enough, and you're almost like I just thought enjoy the last 10 minutes. And honestly, Poz, I think we were a bit quiet in the South Stand until maybe about obviously when we scored, but the last 20, 25 minutes were wild. Honestly, some of the people say, well, them. Says it sounded like we're off, the roof was coming off after, and it was, wasn't it? We're just brilliant. The Town are staying up, and I was pleased as well. Little things really, but just that no one went on the pitch. It'd have been gutting really, just to be denied that kind of, let Warnock have have his 5 minutes of fame with the lads and stuff as well. But it's just under lights. It just everything just feels good. We've had so many of our big moments, obviously in the playoff midweeks under lights and stuff, and everything just feels better. But it was an incredible moment. I don't know what you did when it whistle went, but it just felt, honestly, when you've given someone up, you should never give up in life, should you? It's so bad, but I've not met one person who thought we'd do it, even the staunch Warnock allies were.
Yeah, when we were, I've said a few times, when we had that, setback at Blackpool and then went to Wigan on the Saturday. I know we were kind of like managerless at the time, so we were a little bit different, but we played that match at Wigan, and in all my, probably 30 plus years ago to watch Town, it was probably, that was one of, that. If you had to name top 5 performances that were diabolical, that were definitely in there. And I remember afterwards that a lot of the players kind of, they do their little claps towards it. I remember just a load of people just like hurling abuse towards him, and I remember walking back to the car, and at that point I just resigned myself to relegation, and I thought to myself, do you know what, we're not going to get out of this. There's no point kind of getting angry about it for the rest of the season. It's going to be what it is, and for Warnock to turn from that mentality to the mentality that I have now, for him to turn that around it's a miracle.
I watched that League One final day unfold. I don't know if you did that. No, not yesterday on Jeff Stelling and what have you. And it just really dawned to me that it was so massive us not going down. You looked at some of them games like, Fleetwood and Shoes. I mean, they were singing there, weren't they? We're Shrewsbury and stuff. But and yet I still couldn't believe you got people saying, "Oh, it'd been, it's not the end of the world. We can regroup." And League One's not a place to regroup. Sheffield Wednesday could end up with 96 points and not go up. It was so massive, and obviously Kevin Nagle.
League One's a bear pit, mate.
It is. So it was beautiful yesterday to watch all that unfold, thinking, "Wow, we've done some big bullet there," and it's You have
a little chocolate derby as well, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit, definitely. And honestly, there's going to be big casualties in them League One playoffs, isn't there? Because you've got people who just sneaked in, and maybe it could be their time, obviously history with us. But isn't it beautiful now? We can just put his feet up and let everyone else go through hell, like Leeds fans are currently. You've got hopefully Carlisle, Mr. Clibbon, can do us a big favour and put another smile on his face at the weekend with his boys, and it's
hashtag what?
Yeah. Hashtag up the United. But no, honestly, I don't think so many people have underplayed. I don't know what you think, Phil, about League One. It's like, I know you get, some fans, I've been there and I'll follow them again. I get that, mate. But for Usher Town, as a club and a business, and Kevin Nagle and everything, it'd have been a disaster, man, in my opinion. But then, Poz, you were saying about having a
disaster because of Kevin Nagle's coming. It tell you what, you've all said it. We're a championship club. We are. Do you know what I mean? The fans, the crowd, the ground, the club, the history. It's a championship club, so it would disaster is a strong word, but it would have been bad, wouldn't it, if you go to League One? And it's so difficult to get out of. I mean, look at these teams that are in there now. It's horrendous. Some decent away days though, some different grounds, etc. I mean, my little lad turned around to me. He says, "Can we go some more away games next year?"
Phil, how hard would it get out of that League One before? We threw money after money, big signing after big signing. We lost playoff finals, semi-finals. Short memories from people that were only like 10 to the effort, the grit, and we only kind of spawned a penalty shootout. People have got short memories, man. It's like it'd have been a nightmare to go down for me.
Yeah, and like you said, we've said it for the last couple of years now, and if you slight mismanagement of a situation, and you're back in those areas that you don't want to be.
Look at Leeds, mate. There's the same there, the mismanagement there. It's if you get it wrong, we've got away with it, Phil, haven't we? We've been lucky, really, mate.
Obviously we've got away with it this season, but who knows next season? Because there's an accumulation of things. So hopefully things are put in place next season to kind of to change that. But you hit nail on the head there. Leeds United are exactly the same as what we've done. These signings, these decisions there at that club that's killed them this year. So it just shows if you get it wrong, and anybody can get it wrong. People have slated Dean, etc., whatever, but it's not easy. And if you get things wrong, you're back to square one, and that's the last thing we wanted. But this is like a massive, shining light in terms of what we've had and where we've been, and it's been a great end to the season, really. I missed the Sheffield United game, but you were talking about being nervous, etc. But I've got a mate of mine. He's friends with the gaffer, and I'd heard a few stories coming out of Sheffield United's camp. It sounds like they've enjoyed themselves since they got automatic promotion. Yeah. So I weren't worried because I've heard some stories.
McBurney, honestly, when McBurney came on, I looked at my mate and went, "He's pissed, he is," and he looked like he was absolutely all over the place. And I'm like, "He's been out."
The players, at some point, the players have gone out, come home, and gone out again within the space of half an hour. So I weren't too worried, and like I said, I missed the game, but I listened to the little lad who played football, so we listened to it on the radio, and again, it just sounded kind of, I wouldn't say easy, but there was very little worry from our point of view. You listen to the radio and it's really animated. Oggy gets really animated and stuff.
Yeah, it makes me nervous, does Oggy?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it just seemed pretty straightforward. And yeah, fortunately we got it when we did, because it were a nice day today to be able to rock up and not have to worry about anything.
It's just mad, isn't it? Like if you'd have said to you in August, right, guys, we'd be celebrating being in the same division we started in August after losing playoff final. You didn't think it was, but the best thing is about it that everyone that knows football, there's no one said, "Oh, what you celebrate?" I've not had anyone, "What you celebrate about staying up?" Because everyone knew in football, especially Champmans, we were done. Everyone knew, man, and that's what makes it so sweet. And I've not met anyone yet who thought, "Yeah, we could get out of it." It's not even that.
I've seen a few saying, "Oh, don't celebrate mediocrity." It's like, piss off. We were dead and buried. A couple of people on social media.
But that's relevant though, because we've been batting above our weight for a long time. got. So it's not mediocrity. It's
I mean, we were dead. We were dead. Celebrate it because we were gone. We were gone. Right. Let's have
just quickly. Do you remember when Lee Clark kept Birmingham up that season? I was gutted because I wanted them down, but that was a similar kind of escape, and they were like, they filled Bolton and they went on the pitch and blah. And I'm thinking, God, I can't believe. And it's exactly kind of us, because you don't when it's gone and you get it back, it's just a beautiful thing, man, and that as well. And yeah, honestly, it's just like, to be a Town fan, like, it's never dull, is it? Like Poz said, 14 seasons of up and down. Next year, if we're doing this and we're like 12th and we've been that all year, don't be moaning.
It'd be boring, that. It'd be too boring.
Right. I think what we'll do is we'll have a small break and then come back with the topics that we decided to bring to the podcast. But we might have to speed up because Kosi's mouth's been in overflow, hasn't it, today? So we'll keep coming back in a minute.
I've enjoyed it. Nice little free-flowing pod.
Right, okay, we are back. So what we've been trying to do in the last couple of weeks is we've all been trying to bring a certain topic to the table. I thought I'd bring this in nice and quick because I thought mine was getting broached a moment ago. Guys, one point that I'd like to make really is that the strength of the Championship next season looks like it is increasing. You look at Plymouth, who've come up, they're a good side. They've got a lot of things right off the field and on the field. Ipswich got a lot of money behind them, look like a good side coming up. You could see Sheffield Wednesday maybe coming up and having another tilt at things. You've got Bolton, you've got Barnsley have done quite well under Michael Duff. So next year it could be quite a strong league. And you look at the ones coming down. Southampton look like they're going to come down. Hopefully the Chesties come down and maybe Forest or Leicester. It's going to be a tough division next year. And my point really is the strength of this division. Town, the buyout needs to go through, or the Kevin Nagel takeover needs to go through as soon as possible. But Town need to really grab the by the balls to make a point and really make sure we're not in this position next season. What really frustrates me sometimes is let's pie off this small dog working class crap and let's start to think a bit bigger and better and maybe get on the front foot again rather than constantly talking the club down. Let's aim higher commercially, aim higher, in terms of players, staff. First things first, get a good sporting director in, get a good staff in place, get a good manager for next season. Town fans were singing one more year, weren't they, at Neil Warnock, but he's obviously not going to do that. But, we really have to get things, Huddersfield Town have had the best seasons when they've done things quickly in the summer, when they've done the business early, they've done all this early. They've done some really sort of stuff, haven't they? Because I'm going to mute you. So we do some really good stuff, when we do things early. So we really need to get on it as soon as possible to have a decent season next year. Because, if we continue to take half measures like we have done, then Huddersfield Town could be back in the same position next season. So really, let's get on the front foot. Let's get a decent sporting director in. Let's get a good CEO, manager, etc. And let's have a go next season. Kevin Nagel's coming. There could really be a real opportunity to ride that momentum through. But Huddersfield Town have been masters of their own downfall, haven't they, in the past? So my point really is Town really need to grab the bull by the horns and really push forward.
What have you crossed that as well, Matt? Because I get you, but Millwall fans want to Gary Rowett out all season. I get they haven't got what they've got today, but you're not telling me that you thought they'd have a go and they nearly entered in the playoffs. Sunderland kind of got up and...
Well, Millwall have been just outside the playoffs for the last 3 years, though, haven't they? They've been outside the playoffs for the last 3 years. 12
million? Good manager.
It's not necessarily just about that. It's not just about money, Kosi. It's about doing things right. It's about doing things early. It's about not taking half measures. It's about not bringing in a head coach who's had 6 months in a foreign league and giving him no staff to work with, and stuff like that.
Corberan, when he nearly got us up.
No, Corberan had a job and he was allowed to bring in Chicho. He was allowed to bring in Jorge. They did it properly. Fotheringham wasn't allowed to bring anyone in until Kenny Miller.
How are you going to get it, mate? I get what you want.
Well, if we don't get it, this is the point. If we don't get it, we're going to be in the same position next year.
I think you're right, Matt, especially in regard to getting somebody in quick. And it's obviously there's going to be the change in ownership. The quicker that gets through, the better. Fingers crossed. I'm sure they'll know behind the scenes whether there's likely to be any, hurdles to jump over. And hopefully, if there is, they're working those out as quickly as possible. But it's interesting to see that. There's already rumours in regards to who might be coming in. I think Paul Buckle is kind of like the main one at the moment. Maybe that's just because he used to be at Sacramento, so obviously people are putting two and two together there and maybe coming out with with 5. But it's interesting. It's good that the rumours are starting. Is what I'm getting at, because if not, this could drag on in regards to getting the people in that we need to get in. I think I agree with you in the fact that it needs to just be more than a manager. It needs to be, for me, it needs to be decks cleared and almost restart. The new. I know we've said this about Huddersfield Town 3 or 4 times, haven't we, recently? But a new era where the new owner can come in and put his own people in place, not just in the dugout, but also in other areas. Potentially commercial areas. Obviously, Americans are very big on that, so that's an important important position to fill. Just as important as kind of the on the field stuff. So I'm hoping it's one of those where there's a list of people kind of almost ready to go, and it's just a case of getting a green light from whoever we need to get it from in regards to the transfer of the club. And once that's done, we can get the business done early, get the players in early, and come back in July with the squad ready to start pre-season. We did that under Wagner, and look what happened there. I don't want to be messing around coming into the first week of August thinking, oh, we still need this striker, or we could do with a centre half, or we still need this number 8, X, Y, and Z. We need those players in, and we need them in sharpish. So hopefully they've had enough time to work out who's going to come into what position and to get on with it.
Well, it's just little things, isn't it? Like, obviously, we have to wait till the takeover goes through, but there's players out of contract at the minute, and who's making the decisions on these players that are currently out of contract? There's so much up in the air. Could you lose a couple of players as well because we've not sorted things in the background? I understand that they can't do anything until the takeover goes through, but you would hope there are some kind of contingencies just in case it rumbles on, that somebody's actually able to make some kind of decisions in there just to make sure that we're not treading water again next year.
I just think it's a difficult one, because if Ian Everts appointed manager of Huddersfield Town or Michael Duff, what does that, or Paul Booker, what does that, wow, that's it, we're really going for it, or 10 million spent really going for it, or we get a director of football from Norway, they really go. I get what we all want him, but I just don't know how you define, when I'm going to go back to the Wagner season, but we're signing captains, leaders, players, so you kind of think, ooh, these guys must have something about them. You know what? It's really a difficult one, and I think it's a real danger here with Kevin Niggs. His words are massive when he early on. Phil got it all wrong early doors with his words, and it cost him quite a lot of credibility, and I don't think he got that back. But what's coming out, want us to aim for the Premier League. Everyone will be like, whey! But then all of a sudden he spends 4 million, and then everyone's slaughtering him on Twitter. I think it's a really difficult. Well,
you don't have to do that, does it? It's just about being brave and making good decisions early, and not take it early.
Like what?
I just told you, mate, a sporting director that actually can implement something. I told you a list of things, and you weren't listening.
So that guy that we were on about after the Cardiff game, and that as well, it's like, wow, that means we're going for it. Because we can get the sporting director in.
Yeah, well, exactly. Get him in. Get someone in like a director, and then he's got to build a team in the background, because we're looking at Narcis Palak's been linked with a Blackpool job. He leaves. There's another coaching place to fill. If he takes anyone with him, analysts, etc. Your sporting director is the one who implements everything from the top, and he also implements the style of play as well, all the way through the football club, and that's so key as well. Actually having not necessarily just a style, but something about the football club that you stick to. Some heuristics or some kind of identity of sorts, that you stick to, and it's about doing that properly and not just half-assing it. That's the point I'm trying to make. Is you got to go out and you got to empower these people to make decisions nice and early, and get on it and get at it. Not be sort of chasing your tail at the end of the transfer window, going, oh shit, we've not got any centre backs here. We better throw a load of money at Mbeti and Mikael Helik. And Mikael Helik's worked out brilliantly, but it's about getting things early and getting things sorted quickly and getting the right people in post, because this thing drags on, and then all of a sudden you don't have a manager until June, July, and then you're behind everyone else, and like I say, it's a tough league, and you've just got to get on it and at it straight away. And that was the point, really.
But you know what? We're behind it already.
Well, exactly, yeah.
But we're behind it already, simple as that, because we don't have a manager. So we're in exactly the same place as what we've been for a long time, and that's one of the most frustrating things. And I think it's kind of hold on to your hats kind of stuff again, because sporting directors, managers, whatever, all that crap, it's all irrelevant. We need players. Simple as that. You need funds to get those players. So are we going to get the funds? Who's a manager that's going to bring the players in? Or who's a sporting director who's going to bring the players in? There's so many questions in there. And we're in the same place as what we were last year. It's exactly the same. So
I
Go on
agree.
and we can talk about it all over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. But we're back in where we are, and like you said before, I never thought about it that way. But there's some good teams coming up this year. There's some big clubs, and there's some good teams coming down as well. You know, there's a lot of money in certain clubs that are coming down. So it's got to be so difficult next year. And yes, it's been a great end to the season this year. And this was probably my negatives that I'm going to talk about before. But are we in a worse position than last year for next year? I mean, we didn't know that we were going to leave last year. So, but are we in a worse position this year?
I think as it stands, it's a blank canvas, and it's hard to compare, as you say, Phil. If we'd have gone into this season with O'Brien in position, the fact that they left so late is, that's what threw us, isn't it? I think.
But a little bit early. But the thing is, these teams are sorting this out probably about 2 months ago who they want. So
there's not, like I say, it's just one of those things you can't. We could sit here for another 3 hours and discuss it, but we aren't in a position to make any decisions, are we? So it's not. It's just going to be a wait and see job, innit? And just.
The thing that just makes me think I know what you want, but we lost 7-0 at Norwich that season, at the end of that season. Carlos Corberan were wanted out. The club were in a mess. Bromley out, and then we nearly went up the next season. So I just think it's not. It don't worry me as much as, like, I know what you're saying. It'd be great to have all director football and then everything the chess, but it just showed in the carnage and what we had that season. We nearly went up that season, and we've got us loans wrong this year, and we've kind of paid the price for poor management appointments, but we've still even stayed up despite all the mistakes. So I just think, I don't know, I don't feel as concerned about it as you, because
that's the point, because the league's going to be, on paper at the minute, it looks stronger next year.
Season after
that's it.
I'm not saying that. Let's get that podcast back off that Norwich. No, we've got to nearly go up next year with 80 odd points. You'd be like, off your dick.
I don't think anyone wants that back, to be honest.
No.
Right, who's next?
Bad times.
Kosi, do you want to go next?
Yeah, it's just style of play, that's all. It's really interesting, because I've had quite a few people, even tonight, saying, he was brilliant what Warnock did, but I won't want to see that football every week. And I was countering it by saying, I don't feel that, that when I'm watching it, maybe it's because the wins and maybe the energy that Warnock's given us, and obviously the fact that we've got out of it, but I don't feel that I'm watching like negative football, and everyone's throwing these stats. Sky were doing it again the other day, wasn't it, about passes and stuff, and it made us look back. But I don't go away thinking I'm bored or stuff. Although Phil said it, I think you've got to take it to the art of it, because it was a bit of a dead rubber. But and again, it just comes back to the old. It's points over performance, and part of me thinks, do we get a sexy football coach who can give us 65-70% possession with 2 shots on target, and we're bored? Obviously, it'd be great to have football, but again, I think it just comes down to that. Town fans just like to see hard-working players, front foot football, which I think we played under Warnock, which sounds bizarre when you look at his stats. You think that ain't front foot football, but I feel when we have got the front foot, we've had to go. But I think what I'm trying to say to you is, again, that probably deep down, I'd love to see some Pep Guardiola stuff, but I could easily stomach another season of Warnock football. But other people were telling me not. But has it been really that bad? Have you been bored? I am.
Do you know what, Kosi? It comes back to that literally the old thing, doesn't it? You don't care how you play whilst you're winning. And I guarantee these matches where we've had 20%, 21%, 22%, wherever it's been, very low percentages, and you lose 4-0, people walk out of that stadium with a totally different mindset because you've won. You don't care. You wear it as a badge of honour. We won and we only had 20-odd%. Look at people that are happy when you win. Nobody cares when you lose. You can even win and play all this tippy-tappy football, and it's boring. I remember people sometimes suggested under Wagner that it were boring football because we'd pass it around and keep possession and recycle, as they say, and you'd come out and win 2-0, but you were bored because there were no edge to the game, because it was just there. At least with Warnock football, like, they've been attacking us, so there's always been a bit of a threat, and then we'd counter them on break. So for me, I fully agree with you, because I think it's been quite exciting. But turn the results round, and would you think that's the thing?
I just think it's the character of the manager. I think, like, for example, I don't think Corberan, I don't think the fans bought into Corberan at all. Some of them did, some of them didn't. But I honestly think you could get Big Sam in. I know, forget he's at Leeds now. Big Sam could come in and do half a job, and the fans would love him, because he's a character. I think we need a manager with a bit of character. I think Wagner obviously he got his results, but he was a character and people could associate with him. I don't think people could associate with Corbin. I think so much depends on the personality of our manager.
Yeah, no, there is that as well, mate. Yeah, there is that as well.
I think
if you're asking what style of football I'd like to play, you'd obviously like to play Man City style football and win 6-0 every week because you'd score loads, it'd be good to watch. Obviously, you're not going to get that at Town. It's not going to be that varied. I just like to see us go into every game trying to win. How we play, yeah, it's nice to play nice football, but am I that bothered? No, I go to watch Town to win. I enjoy it if we win and I don't enjoy it if we lose, and it's pretty much as simple as that these days for me. If we knock it long and play bad football but come out, winners, then I go home happy. So
I just found it fascinating listening to Warnock about that Burnley because we criticised him on here this pod for throwing the game. We were a bit mad, weren't we? Well, I say we, me and
I remember. Yeah.
But he said, and he mentioned it, didn't he? He said he'd take Burnley on now because we were almost like in hospital, getting operated on.
We weren't ready, were we? We weren't ready to do that.
It got me mad because I think he shouldn't throw any game, but I think what he's trying to say is you build it up and then you can play against these teams. But I'm fascinated to see what Phil and Matt have got to say about it.
I'll tell you what, so I might be going off tangent a little bit here, but I'm more interested in terms of how Town fans are going to react to an American owner, and whether it's going to change kind of the psyche of the fans. And Cowshed Loyal responded really well to the German type of manager kind of thing, and how's it going to change Poz in that Cowshed Loyal for American owner? Are we going to get American flags out?
No, I don't think we'll have the old.
I've seen an American flag in the middle.
Style support. I think to be fair, we'll keep on going as we're going, and I think the thing that the American fan base is, if you look into them, you see all these kind of clips on Twitter, where all English fans take the mickey and stuff like that. But if you actually have a delve into American fan culture, maybe not just for soccer but for everything, it's really good. They're really passionate about the team. It's just a different way in it. What English are like. Whatever the English way is the best. In a lot of people's views. And if you look at some of the fan groups out in America, they're just as good as anything that you'll see out in Europe. The displays that they do. Yeah, I think pyro is legal over there, so that obviously massively helps. So they have certain sections where it's you can use it and stuff. So if you look some of the fan displays and the passion that they show, it's incredible. I just think that as English people, we see it as being a little bit cheesy, probably because they've not had. It's not like there's no history behind it, which there's not going to be as if for something that's fairly new, or like the modern MLS is obviously new. So it looks a bit fake. It looks a bit put on. I just hope, obviously, regarding what Neagle does at Town, I hope he doesn't make it cheesy, because it can quite easily come across like that sometimes with Americans, can't it? But from everyone I've spoken to, I think everybody's kind of looking forward to this new era, and Americans come in and they have different ideas, don't they? The commercial side of it will obviously change. Hopefully they'll get some sort of fan zone down there, and I just hope that they get fan groups involved, HTSA, Cowshed Loyal, the ATT, and I hope that they don't just run off and do things without kind of feeling the room, shall we say? Because it could quite easily fall flat on its face if they do that. But no, I think the fans will respond to it well. I think it's time for a fresh start. I think obviously Dean Oil's come in and he's done what he's done, and now it's time for him to bow out and we start a new chapter. Obviously, with the feel-good factor around the club at the moment, I think it is the perfect time for it to happen. And we'll just have to, a bit like everything else for next season, we'll just have to kind of see what happens and go with it, really.
It was good to hear Dean Hall's name being sung today, Poz. I don't know if you were singing it, but there was a big noise, the Cowshed. But it was funny today when they were like, USA, I thought, Kevin's on pitch. I'm like, come on.
I think it was Dwayne Owens, wasn't it?
Well, look, got it wrong.
I would be disappointed. I would understand that. We were just chatting, and I never really heard anything with Dean, and I would hope they were going to be a little bit more fuss made about Dean. I was a little bit disappointed with that, and I thought they might have introduced the new owner to the crowd. I mean, you guys probably have a little bit more information regarding all that kind of stuff, but I thought there was a bit of an opportunity there to kind of, for everyone to give thanks to Dean and then to welcome the new guy in, but obviously it didn't happen.
No, it's not gone through yet, has it? So I think they're just being a bit extra careful, I would imagine. Just in case. You'd look idiots, wouldn't you, if you... You'd look daft though, wouldn't you, if you paraded him and then it fell through, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
Michael Knight and remember Michael Knight and Matt? I just had
yeah, Man United. Yeah, what a whopper he was. Ex-Carlisle as well, so up the
Carlisle, come on.
Up the border. What are they called, Carlisle? What's their nickname?
Foxes, I think, aren't they? Foxes.
They've got a fox on the badge, haven't they? I can't remember what it is.
Up the Carlisle.
Eddie Stobars. I always remember it.
Up the Eddie Stobars, yeah.
Up the truckers.
Yeah, no, I agree. I just going back to your point there, Cos, quickly. I agree with it. I think Town fans do respond to a personality. Jacko, Wagner, Warnock, Buxton. They always respond well to a front man, if you like, don't they? They don't respond well to an Andy Ritchie or Carlos or whatever. Fotheringham, they respond to big personalities, don't they? And big sort of working class personality. I don't know if that's the right thing, but sort of people that aren't, people that are a bit sort of, down to earth, I think is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I think you're right. It kind of goes hand in hand with the sporting director thing, though, a little bit in that he's the one who sets the template, isn't it, for the club, and we just need to get that sorted and know what direction we're going in and full steam ahead.
A little bit then. Does that mean Bromby's on the exit?
I don't know. This is the thing. It's we don't know, do we? It feels like it. 'Cause, he's been pushed right back to the background. You don't hear from him anymore, and Dave Baldwin seems to have taken a lot of the work off him. I don't know whether we don't know whether the communication. I don't expect them to come out and say what's happening or speculation with somebody's job, because it's not fair, is it? But everything just points to a change, doesn't it? That's all. Whether that's for the better or for the worse, I don't know. But it just seems to be the case. It just seems to be the natural conclusion, doesn't it, the way things are going? Otherwise, I think you would have maybe heard from him. But who knows? Maybe Nagel likes the cut of his jib and Lee gets to do all those things and we move on. But who knows?
Maybe Kosi's got it. Maybe they've offered it Kosi already.
Kosi.
That's another story. Poz, what were you offering?
The role, who are you bringing in now? Who are you bringing in?
Pep Cosiola.
To manage? I couldn't even tell you, Phil.
Kosi. You've got the role.
The trouble is, I think obviously we've had two managers this year who've never managed like a team, and his fingers burned, and I really don't know experience of it. I mean, like Everett and Duff are being linked, but League, I can kind of get the young up and coming hungry manager coming up, and it's interesting because like Eddie Howe at Burnley didn't do nothing, but obviously doing a great job at Newcastle. You don't know with these young and hungry managers and stuff. But I just wondered as well with Kevin Nagel. It's like if it was still the same ownership part, I'd think it's just going to be experience coming in, experience. But now, honestly, that's the thing. Like Matt says, it's kind of exciting, but a bit weird, really. It's just I honestly have absolutely no idea, and it's mad. Adrian Eathler mentioned a bit. Do you remember him, Phil? I thought
Inchie.
Yeah, I don't know. He must be. He's managing in America, isn't he? But
Wayne Rooney.
Oh.
I don't think he'd be that bad, actually. I don't know. I don't think he'd be terrible. I think he'd be all right.
Birmingham have just been taken over, aren't they, by American owners as well? The Wagner, I thought they were them.
Tom Wagner, yeah. Well, that's what I mean about next season, because they look like they were going to be a mess, and now they're been taken over by someone worth $4 billion. So I presume their woes are behind them. But yeah, who's next on the thing? Did someone?
Pozza, I don't think.
Is it Pozza's turn?
Yeah,
Pozza's going to talk about Josh Caroma, won't you, mate?
Yeah, I think obviously we're running on a little bit now, so it might be a quick yes or no from you boys on this one. But just think about Josh Caroma and his recent, resurgence in form. Played 19 this season, scored 4, 1 assist. Obviously, since Warnock came back, I think he scored 3 and got 1 assist. Obviously, he seems a totally different player since Warnock came back. He's obviously rejuvenalised him, and if you could get that kind of performance out of Caroma for 70-75% of the season, obviously it's a no-brainer. My question to you guys is it just a bit of Simon Baldry syndrome? I always remember Simon Baldry last, a bit of his contract turned into, Ronaldinho down in the old Leeds Road and seemed to, oh yeah, go on, we'll give him a chance. Yeah. Would you take a punt on Caroma for another 2? You've probably got to give him a 2-year deal. Or do you think it's, there's better out there for the money? Matt, I know what you'll say.
It kind of depends on the manager, doesn't it? Because he's had
This is just going to be another we don't know, isn't it?
It's tough, isn't it? Because he's had Danny Cowley and not really done it. He was hit and miss under Carlos, didn't do it under Fothers or Danny Schofield. It just seems to be one of those characters that you need to work out, doesn't it? If we have a good manager and stuff, then yeah, I'd keep him. I am wary that he could be absolutely, if you give him a 3-year deal, he could be crap for 2.5 years of it. I'm aware of that. But I think at his age, at 24, and what he can do, I just got this feeling that if you don't, although he might not want to stay here, that's another thing, that's another possibility, isn't it? But if you don't try and keep him, I've just got this feeling that he's going to go somewhere else and do really well. So I think I would, but I'm very aware that he could be useless if we do it, depending on the manager. But he could be great as well. I quite like him up front. I thought against Sheffield United up front, he was phenomenal, and coming in from that left striker position, he's really good. I like him. I've always liked Josh Koroma, but like you say, you need the right manager to get the best out of him. And if he's, like you say, that 75% of the time, he's not at Huddersfield Town, is he? He's off somewhere better. So if you could even get it half the time, then great. But it's a risk, probably worth taking. I think for he's shown. I think a free flowing Josh Koroma who's playing with no fear and full of confidence. It's a no-brainer that you keep him. There's a few things he needs to iron out. He always seems to cut inside. I like to see him trying to attack the side, the byline a little bit more as well, just to get the fullback thinking a little bit more. But I think he's a young kid. He's, like I said, 24-year-old. He's shown that he's going to be up and down. He's had good performances for us. He's then been poor. He's gone out on loan. He's come back. He's not been great, but then he's improved again. So unfortunately, I think that those type of players are going to be frustrating at times, and I think it is the kind of person who. He's a manager that can come in and kind of get them on their level and arm around the shoulders. Did you see him today with Warnock when he came off the pitch? You never seen him like that. You can see there he's probably one of those players who wants to be loved and wants to be reassured. And I think there's a player in there. You can't argue there's not a player in there. There's a player in there. I'd definitely keep hold of him. I think it's a no-brainer.
I'd be amazed. Yeah, I'd be amazed if he stopped. I just think he's. If he had a year left or 2 left, I think it's different. But obviously, I think I'd like him to stay. But he's just, I think what he's done in the last month or 2, there's people gonna, get a nice free transfer there. And I think, obviously we don't know what Nagel's kind of, going to be doing with wages wise. But I don't think he'd rock any salary bandings to keep him in. I felt it were his last swan song today, and what a way to go and that as well. And I could be totally wrong. He could have reinvigorated this time. He's an hard guy to work out in him mentally, because you look at the day and everyone's going nuts in front of the crowd, but he's kind of barely collapsed, didn't he, in that as well? And I think we've maybe read into his.
He seems like a chilled out guy, though. He don't seem like one of them guys that's going to come and be dancing around like Nabisar did last year and Sorba Thomas and stuff. He seems like he has that like swagger, don't he? I've just put it in top corner, but it's just what I do, kind of thing. He's hard to work out, and sometimes that can come across as him not caring. And you know what Town fans are like in situations like that; they get at people, don't they? So that was my little thing.
We don't come across match winners a lot, though, do we, at Town? So when
I were hoping someone were going to bring him with Sorba Thomas. We discussed this in the pub. I think the fans won't entertain him back, but I would individually. But I think there'd be too many that'd be on his back. I'd love him to.
I agree with that, Kosi.
I think I'd be amazed if he's. And it's sad, really, but I just don't think the fans would give him a chance. I could be wrong.
I think if Neil Warnock tells you to give him a chance, you give him a chance. But if you're bothering him or someone does, you don't, do you? No. It's a tough one with him, isn't it? Because there's reports that he's been a bit of a bell end at Blackburn recently. So when you're trying to build something, when you're trying to build something, you don't really want that either, do you? But he came on today and they won the game, didn't they? But
how good's Josh Ruffles been on the quite good? We're going through our team now, but honestly, a guy who I just can't. He's never anyone who's going to give you spectacular, 9s out of 10s. But he's been really impressive for us in our great escape for me, and he's quiet. I don't know if I'd want to keep him. Honestly, it was a shame today that I was thinking there's no chance for this guy, but I really wanted to go on pitch and shake his hand because he's been really good for us. And we've really criticised him, but he's been as good as anyone, mate, in the resurgence.
Yeah, I agree. 100% Warnock's got straight into him, seen him as his left back and got fired straight into him. 100%, because he's been so much better, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And like we have like on the pod. I mean, I know I've not been on as much, but you know, I've been pretty negative about him, but I think he's been brilliant recently.
Yeah, he's been solid, hasn't he? He's done well. He's done really well. He's taken it like
positionally 1v1s on the ball, just 10 times better. Everything's just been a lot better for him.
Yeah, I mean, do you keep him? I don't know, but you know, you've got Ben Jackson and Headley, haven't you? Sort of knocking on the door. There's quite a few there. I don't know. But
Warnock said, didn't he? This press conference was incredible. Unless you're Duncan Foster, probably didn't enjoy it. But he won it fascinating. Again, you just don't know with Warnock, but it's just kind of a bit of bluff. But he reckoned that we weren't that far away because Catherine and Anna were great. She were pushing him on some good questions and what would you do? Would you begin? And he would kind of think he thought there were only 2 or 3 players from kind of getting, you know, whether they're just saying that so you don't want to upset anyone, whether he really believes it. But I found that fascinating, to be honest with you, and that as well. But the way he's got a tune out of him, maybe that's what it is. Maybe it doesn't need a revolution, just needs a bit of tinkering. Maybe.
It's still pretty much the nucleus of the squad that finished third, really, isn't it? There's a lot of players still there that did well last year. I think maybe they overachieved last year a little bit for their ability, and then maybe they've under a bit this year for most of it. But I think most of the squad's fine. It just needs that stardust, doesn't it? It probably needs a new striker next year, like a good, decent striker. But those cost money, don't they? That's the difficult conundrum that everybody tries to solve, isn't it? So,
Matt, have we seen Lee Nichols in a township last time, or what? What's your thought?
No, I think he'll be here next year. I just don't think. I know people always going about him being England's third choice, but I don't see him. I don't see him getting into a Premier League side. I don't know. Would you see him getting into it? Maybe one at the bottom end, possibly. But would they pay the money for it? Would West Ham, someone like that, pay money? I don't think they would. A
really good relationship with his keeper coach.
Yeah, I think he quite likes it here, doesn't he?
Yeah, it's a good place to play. I think it's probably his level where he's at. He could probably push a little bit higher, obviously, but
yeah.
I can't see him moving on.
If he moved to the Premier League, he'd probably start as a number 2 and have to work his way in. And at 31, is he 30, 31?
I'd say that was one of the nice things today, Matt. I got the photo of it, but there were Vashlik, there were Clements, there were Nichols, Billa, and they were all like, I had a photo, and they were all. And you know what? It just sums up, I think, just where it's gone in the last month or 2. Real big.
Because it's keepers, mate. It's keepers.
Yeah, brilliant.
Good lads, aren't they?
Yeah, we stick together, don't we? Do you know what I mean?
Brilliant. You've all played the part. They've all done all right, haven't they? What a strange season. We've been awful for 7 months, but yet we're loving it. Now it's bizarre, man.
Who's next? Phil, are you next?
Well, I mean, not so much of football, but like today, it was class to see so many people there. But it took me ages again to get some food and a drink. It's really frustrating. It's like, this is the football, but like they need to do something with these kiosks because it takes too long to get your food and drink. It's really bugging me. That's all I've got. I mean, that's all I've got.
Yeah, it's not great.
Food, but it's. I can't decide whether to go. I go in the fast lane because it's supposed to be an express lane, but it takes longer. I go in other lane, but it's a longer queue. So I don't know which one's going quicker. I just can't decide.
Do you reckon we need one of those machines that does the pints from the bottom up that you can just throw out quickly?
Well, I had 2 pints today, and I got one of those 2 pinter, but I wanted 2 pints, 2 separate ones. So,
and then you can't take it out to the pitch, can you?
Phil, you're so right, and it just feels like it's a 30-year-old stadium next year, and I just think I just don't know what you can do because. I'm lucky. I've kind of been at so many different kind of grounds and stuff, but some of them are a great example. They were incredible. You went there, ref blew his whistle, and you had a pint around within a second and what have you. It's like, what can you do? We do need to do something. The concourse area is horrible, and you go to these other grounds, it's like a big. Obviously, Cardiff are unbelievable. I know these are all newer stadiums, but the ground needs so much doing on it. But you're so right. The South Stand, if you're in like Kilnabank, you're like in luxury and. You know, Riverside compared. South Stand's embarrassing, man. If it rains, you get wet. Queues are like zigzags. You don't have a clue who's queuing where. And yeah, 100%. I really hope that Kevin Nagle kind of can do something about the stadium and all that carry on. There's so much that can be improved there. He's so.
I don't really want to get started on the North Stand as well. That North Stand's horrible, isn't it? Really.
The red end.
The big red, the little red end. That one, isn't it? The lower tier one. Yeah, that's Pozza's done one, hasn't he? He's just absolutely decided he's had enough and done one.
Great.
Battery from the Chromebook, I think, is gone. But yeah,
What is that?
Coroma.
I don't know why it's gone off, but it's the Viking war. Oh, sorry, I've nudged my spacebar. It's the Coroma conch, isn't it? The Viking war horn for him. But I think that was it. The only last things really. I thought it was a bit strange how the player of the season was announced. I'm pleased that it was Mikael Helik. I think it's fully deserved. I don't think it could be anyone else or anyone remotely close. For me, it would have been Helik, then Lees, then maybe Radoni in third. Perfect. I think it's the right one, but it just seemed to be a bit of an afterthought at the end. Was it Rambo kind of on the pitch going, "Oh yeah, by the way, Mikael Helik's player of the year," and it was like, "Oh okay." I don't know whether they'll probably have a better presentation at the end of year awards, won't they, and stuff like that. But big well done to Mikael Helik, who's been outstanding, hasn't he, for the season really?
He's like, he started quite well, but I think there's been a few areas of his game that he's really improved. And I've been pretty impressed with my mate, big Barnsley fan, and he said, "You've got a real player there." And when he first came, he just looked a little bit stiff and a little bit awkward. I think he's been brilliant, and like I say, I think that him and Lees have forged a great partnership. And God, I don't want to pronounce his name, Vaclav. I thought he's been fantastic. Whether he's shaken off an injury because his knee looked really stiff, did he? But
and there goes Phil. But yeah, no, I've just
been a lot more.
Oh.
Everyone's going out.
It's just me and you.
Yeah. Isn't it exciting summer ahead, Matt? I think for us as town fans, it's never dull, and I just can't wait to see where it's all going to end. But I think
this is a natural place to end the podcast, isn't it?
One by one, everyone's going, man.
I think this is like light stream all over again, isn't it? When we just had Chris Markham by himself after about 8 people. But let's mute Phil again because he's got a really bad echo. I think that's it for this week. So thanks to everyone that's gone. I've been absolutely riddled with cold. So if I've sounded bad to anyone, then I feel it. I feel terrible today. So we'll be, like I say, we may do an end of season staying up party at Magic Rock if there's any interest for it. We're going to try and do a couple or revisit the Cult Heroes series this year with a couple of people hopefully lined up. Keep an eye on us over the summer and maybe we'll have something good lined up. But I think that's it for now. What do you fancy on the way out, Kosi? Do you fancy the standard podcast end, a bit of smile a while, or do you fancy more of a USA pod version?
I think USA, because King Kev's in town, isn't he? So let's make him feel at home. Fish and chips twice and some American music. That could have been a good question. I was going to put that on best fish and chips, but I don't get fish and chips in Huddersfield. So I've absolutely got no idea. But Murgatroyd's for me, Kosi, by Leeds Bradford Airport. That's decent. Yeah, Huddersfield's lacking. They've got the Mother Hubbards, I think, by just on towards Fartown. But no, Kevin, sort it out, mate. But get a fish shop or Nagel's Bagel.
Chippy Pete's in my village is class.
Phil's still there in darkness.
Darkness, my old friend.
Right. We'll catch you soon. We're staying up, and all the best. Catch you next time.
Bits or scrap.
Looking down a dirty old window, down below on Bradley Mills Road, the cars rush around. I'm packing my things and I'll leave the ground. Thursday morning, everyone's reading that it's time for a Huddersfield ownership turnaround. I no longer own Huddersfield Town. Americans are with you. Of the town. What may continue. Huddersfield Town America. Huddersfield Town America. Everybody the acts now on Huddersfield Town. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Hey. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. 40 million fucking quid. Plus another 6 against the end of this bastard season. Fucking hell. I've spent a fucking shitload. What's that in dollars, lads? Hey, you lot, hey up. Howdy, yeehaw, yo. Hey, aluminum, faucet, junior high, pee-wee soccer, diapers, spelling the word colour with no U in it. Jesse Marsh, actually no, fuck that, we're not having him.